Hey, hey, hey. Sorry, I get on here and start harking. Let the harking begin. Back to sweet tart candy cane. Always some kind of candy. Let's get back to this country Christmas, shall we? Sophie had no time to say more, for Saul came up and drove off with the brief remark that the baggage would be along right away. Being hungry, cold, and tired, the guests were rather silent during the short drive, but Aunt Plummy's hospitable welcome and the savory fumes of the dinner awaiting them thawed the ice and won their hearts at once. "Isn't it nice? Aren't you glad you came?" asked Sophie as she led her friends into the parlor, which she had redeemed from its primness by putting bright chintz curtains to the windows, hemlock boughs over the old portraits, a china bowl of flowers on the table, and a splendid fire on the wide hearth. "It's perfectly jolly, and this is the way I begin to enjoy myself," answered Emily, sitting down upon the homemade rug, whose red flannel roses bloomed in a blue list basket. "If I may add a little smoke to your glorious fire, it will be quite perfect. Won't Samson join me?" asked Randall, waiting for permission, cigar case in hand. "He has no small vices, but you may indulge yours," answered Sophie from the depths of a grandmotherly chair. Emily glanced up at her friend as if she caught a new tone in her voice, then turned to the fire again with a wise little nod, as if confiding some secret to the reflection of herself in the bright brass andiron. "His Delilah does not take this form. I wait with interest to discover if he has one." "What a daisy the sister is. Does she ever speak?" asked Randall, trying to lounge on the haircloth sofa, where he was slipping uncomfortably about. "Oh, yes, and sings like a bird. You shall hear her when she gets over her shyness. But no trifling, mind you, for it is a jealousy-guarded daisy, and not to be picked by any idle hand," said Sophie warningly, as she recalled Ruth's blushes and Randall's compliments at dinner. "I should expect to be annihilated by the big brother if I attempted any but the sincerest admiration and respect. Have no fears on that score, but tell us what's to follow this superb dinner. An apple bee, spinning match, husking party, or primitive pastime of some sort? I have no doubt." "As you are new to our ways, I'm going to let you rest this evening. We'll sit about the fire and tell stories. Aunt is a master hand at that, and Saul has reminiscences. He has memories of the war that are well worth hearing if we could only get him to tell them." "Ah, he was there, was he?" "Yes, all through it, and is Major Bassett, though he likes his plain name best. He fought splendidly and had several wounds, though only a mere boy when he earned his scars and bars. I'm very proud of him for that," and Sophie looked so as she glanced at the photograph of a stripling in uniform set in the place of honor on the high mantelpiece. "We must stir him up and hear these martial memories. I want some new incidents and shall book all I can get, if I may." Here Randall was interrupted by Saul himself, who came in with an armful of wood for the fire. "Anything more I can do for you, cousin?" he asked, surveying the scene with a rather wistful look. "Only come and sit with us and talk over war times with Mr. Randall." "When I've foddered the cattle and done my chores, I'd be pleased to. What regiment were you in?" asked Saul, looking down from his lofty height upon the slender gentleman, who answered briefly, "In none. I was abroad at the time." "Sick?" "No, busy with a novel." "Took 4 years to write it?" "I was obliged to travel and study before I could finish it. These things take more time to work up than outsiders would believe. Seems to me our war was a finer story than any you could find in Europe, and the best way to study it would be to fight it out. If you want heroes and heroines, you'd have found plenty of them there. I have no doubt of it, and shall be glad to atone for my seeming neglect of them by hearing about your own exploits, Major." Randall hoped to turn the conversation gracefully, but Saul was not to be caught, and left the room saying with a gleam of fun in his eye, "I can't stop now. Heroes can wait. Pigs can't." The girls laughed at this sudden descent from the sublime to the ridiculous, and Randall joined them, feeling his condescension had not been unobserved. As if drawn by the merry sound, Aunt Plummy appeared and being established in the rocking chair, fell to talking as easily as if she had known her guest for years. "Laugh away, young folks. That's better for digestion than any of the messes people use. Are you troubled with dyspepsia, dear?" Dyspepsy, rather. "You didn't seem to take your victuals very hearty, so I mistrusted you was delicate," she said, looking at Emily, whose pale cheeks and weary eyes told the story of late hours and a gay life. "I haven't eaten so much for years, I assure you, Mrs. Bassett, but it was impossible to taste all your good things. I'm not dyspeptic, thank you, but a little seedy and tired, for I've been working rather hard lately." "Be you a teacher, or have you a profession, as they call a trade nowadays?" asked the old lady in a tone of kindly interest, which prevented a laugh at the idea of Emily's being anything but a beauty and a belle. The others kept their countenances with difficulty, and she answered demurely, "I have no trade as yet, but I dare say I should be happier if I had." "Not a doubt on't, my friend. What would you recommend, ma'am?" "I should say dressmaking was rather in your line, isn't it? Your clothes..." Sorry. "Your clothes is dreadful tasty, and do you credit if you made 'em yourself," said Aunt Plummy, surveyed with feminine interest the simple elegance of the traveling dress, which was the masterpiece of a French modiste. "No, ma'am, I don't make my own things. I'm too lazy. It takes so much time and trouble to select them that I only have strength enough to wear them. Housekeeping used to be the favorite profession in my day. It ain't fashionable now, but it needs a sight of training to be perfect in all that's required, and I've an idea it would be a sight healthier and usefuler than your painting and music and fancy work young women do nowadays." But everyone wants some beauty in their lives, and everyone has a different sphere to fill if one can only find it. Appears to me there's no call for such art when nature is full of beauty for them that can see and love it. As for spears and so on, I've a notion if each of us did our own little chores, smart and thorough, so we needn't go wandering round to set the world to rights. That's the Lord's job, and I presume to say he can do it without any advice of iron. O-U-R-N. Something in the homely but true words seemed to rebuke the three listeners for wasted lives, and for a moment there was no sound but the crackle of the fire, the brisk click of the old lady's knitting needles, and Ruth's voice singing away as if she had made ready to join in the party below. To judge by that sweet sound, you have done one of your chores very beautifully, Mrs. Bassett, and in spite of the follies of our day, succeeded in keeping one girl healthy, happy, and unspoiled," said Emily, looking up into this peaceful old face with her own lovely one, full of respect and envy. I do hope so, for she's my ewe lamb, E-W-E. The last of 4 dear little girls. All the rest are in the burying ground side of father. I don't expect to keep her long, and don't ought to regret when I lose her, for Saul was the best of sons. But daughters is more to mothers somehow, and I always learnt over girls that is left without a brooding wing to keep 'em safe and warm in this world of tribulation. Aunt Plummy laid a hand on Sophie's head as she spoke, with such a motherly look that both girls drew nearer, and Randall resolved to put her in a book without delay. Presently Saul returned with little Ruth hanging on his arm and shyly nestling near him as he took the 3-cornered leathern chair in the chimney nook while she sat on a stool close by. "Now the circle is complete and the picture perfect. Don't light the lamps yet, please, but talk away and let me make a mental study of you. I seldom find so charming a scene to paint," said Randall, beginning to enjoy himself immensely with a true artist's taste for novelty and effect. "Tell us about your book, for we've been reading it as it comes out in the magazine and are much excited, much exercised about how it's going to end." Exercise the demon, began Saul, gallantly throwing himself into the breach, for a momentary embarrassment fell upon the women at the idea of sitting for their portraits before they were ready. Do you really read my poor serial up here? S-E-R-I-A-L. "And do me the honor to like it?" asked the novelist, both flattered and amused, for his work was of the aesthetic sort. Microscopic studies of character and careful pictures of modern life. "Sakes alive, why shouldn't we?" cried Aunt Plummy. We have some education, though we ain't very genteel. We got a town library, kept up by the women mostly, with fairs and tea parties and so on. We have all the magazines regular, and Saul reads out the pieces while Ruth sews and I knit, my eyes being poor. Our winter is long, and evenings would be kinder lonesome if we didn't have have novels and newspapers to cheer them up. I'm very glad I can help to beguile them for you. Now tell me what you honestly think of my work. Ouch. Oh. Criticism is always valuable, and I should really like yours, Mrs. Bassett, said Randall, wondering what the good woman would make of the delicate analysis and worldly wisdom on which he prided himself. Short work, as Aunt Plummy soon showed him, for she rather enjoyed freeing her mind at all times, and decidedly resented the insinuation that country folk could not appreciate light literature as well as city people. I ain't no great of a judge about anything but naturalness of books, and it really does seem as if some of your men and women was dreadful uncomfortable creeters. 'Pears to me it ain't wise to be always picking ourselves to pieces and prying into things that ought to come gradual by way of experience and visitations of Providence. Flowers won't blow worth a cent if you pull 'em open. Better wait and see what they can do alone. I do relish the smart sayings, the odd ways of furrin parts, and the sarcastic slaps at folks' weak spots. But Massey knows we can't live on spice cake and Charlotte Russe, and I do feel as if the books was more sustaining if they was full of everyday people and things like good bread and butter. Them that goes to the heart and ain't soon forgotten is the kind I hanker for. Miss Terry's books now, and Miss Stowe's and Dickens' Christmas pieces, them's real sweet and cheering to my mind. As the blunt old lady paused, it was evident she had produced a sensation, for Saul smiled at the fire. Ruth looked dismayed at this assault upon one of her idols, and the young ladies were both astonished and amused. At the keenness of the new critic who dared express what they often felt. Randall, however, was quite composed and laughed good-naturedly, though secretly feeling as if a pail of cold water had been poured over him. "Many thanks, ma'am. You have discovered my weak point with surprising accuracy. But you see, I cannot help myself." Hang on. That ain't it. "You have discovered my weak point with surprising accuracy, but you see I cannot help picking folks to pieces, as you have expressed it. That is my gift, and it has its attractions, as the sale of my books will testify. People like the spice bread, and as that's the only sort of oven my oven will bake, I must keep on in order to make my living. So rum sellers say, but it ain't a good trade to foller, and I'd chop wood for I'd earn my living harming my feller man." I think I'll stop right there. Sorry, I get so dang sleepy. I ain't done nothing today. Not nothing. Little stitch here, a little stitch there. My tummy's kind of in. Rumbly, rumbly in my tummy. Ain't this so pretty? That Melissa Reed, I tell you what. 5 of these beauties. 5. It's my Siamese kitty cat. Color. DK Cotton. May just have to take one and cake it up. And start another one of these. Really need to finish one to have for Christmas. And oh, if I could finish this sparkly thing. It's so teeny weeny. Yep, I'm going to take this in there. Cake it up. I'll show you later. Love y'all. Isn't that cute?